I like this topic of being ready. Because I've been addicted really all my life to it'll be better when, and I need to get ready for including this podcast. I need to have a little nourishment. I feel like I could use a little more caffeine. I only have this much left in here, and my eyes feel a little heavy for whatever reason.
We
were going to do movement. We were going to maybe cover, I don't know, other logistics or check in, and we were going to get the cover for the sofa, right? That'll be definitely better. I don't know.
But are we ever quite ready?
Feel ready. I want to say Burning Man, and then now just the Rise Festival. It cures me a lot of that. I got another level of being out till 3, laying in bed awake till 4, and telling Matthew I got the 2 early classes because I know you want to go out late. And there were 2 classes I'd never taught before. So starting 9 and then back to back, 2 classes I hadn't taught, up till 4 in the morning, up by 7 to get ready. So definitely the feeling. I didn't give myself the space to assess it much, right? Because I definitely could have gotten the story of I'm not ready, and then what the F am I going to do? Go wake Matthew up and go, hey, I don't feel ready. Can you come leave that? So, sometimes life kind of forces this to be ready.
Interesting, because I had another, ready-meant moment at Unison as well. So it was the night, I guess it was Sunday night, and we had all prepared to go out and dance to Ayla for a little bit before we opened the space, right? And
which night was this?
This was Sunday night. And I started to walk out with you guys towards the main stage, and I realized that I hadn't put my rain fly on, and I knew it was going to rain. Like, it was just a certainty for me, right? So I'm like, well, I don't want to have a soaked, sleeping bag when I get back. I gotta go put a rain fly on. So I removed myself from the group, put my rain fly on, and as I'm walking back to meet you guys, I see a group of people walk into the lightless Brave space, which surprised me, and I was like, I said to myself,
what time was it?
It was 8:57 at that time.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So, and they pointed that out to me. I was like, it opens at 9, and then they pointed their watch, and I was like, well, I guess you're kind of right. I guess I'll open the space to you guys, So I turned the lights on. I hadn't really, gotten acquainted with the sound system there, so I didn't know how to put on the sound.
Right.
And, they're laying there, and every other word out of their mouth is like a fuck bomb, right? Like, they're just like, and it's not even like they're trashing someone. It's just like, they're literally just dropping F-bombs every other word.
Like in a harsh way or playful way, or?
It was a little abrasive to the ears, just like, and I curse like a sailor, right? Like,
I don't know if this is Trust Lab.
Right.
I don't know if this is the Brave Space mellow.
Right, like this doesn't quite feel right, and I also don't know if I'm equipped to say like, no, there's not. I was like thinking back to our meeting like moments ago, and we were talking about the hard rules of Brave Space, and most of them regarded too much pleasure, right? Like we were like, oh, well, there's no orgasm in this space, right? Like that's.
Actually, we didn't say that. No cultivated orgasm, at least with another. But I mean, who knows? Somebody could have an orgasm from looking at a flower. So
yeah.
But yes.
Any such like cursing never came into the equation. So I was like, is this it's technically not outside of our hard rules of like Brave Space, right? And it was fine while they were alone, and then all of a sudden, another gentleman who had been in the practices earlier that morning came in. And I'm like, I wonder what his experience is. He's just laying there. He seems very tranquil and fine. And at the same time, like, I have this sort of sense that I want to curate a space that feels really, peaceful. And with every other word being fuck this and fuck, like, I was like, And they weren't, they weren't moving their bodies so much. They were just kind of laying there and talking, right? Like, now one amongst their group kind of wanted to engage in the space because he had actually gone to some of the workshops that morning. And I'm sitting to myself, am I ready to like really hold this space in the way that it is meant to be held? And fortunately, like, I sort of, I sunk into it. Another person enters the tent and I start to bring them into the contact space. Eventually we go into acro space, and suddenly I'm embodying what I want the space to be. And suddenly the energy shifts from that energy.
I felt that. I came in shortly after that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, the space shifted into what I wanted. But there was definitely some doubts in my mind of like, am I ready to hold this space in the way that I want to? Yeah. And then finding that I was, meeting that challenge. But at the same time, that the readiness is all, right? Really feeling like I got drawn into that experience, sort of haphazardly.
Wow. I think we're in the podcast.
Feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a little bit. I'm not ready. Was I going to brush my teeth? We should check and make sure. Is this recording? Appears to be.
I think we're recording.
I have battery. Perfect.
Yeah.
What's it like to be with not ready? Anybody who's had a child, as a man, I was certainly part of that. Very different from being the womb-bearing person but then the parenting, like, who the hell is ready for that? I really kind of chuckle inside if it's new parents and they're going like, yeah, we're ready. I'm like,
yeah,
kind of.
Yeah.
But hell, a woman knows it. Like, there's no way you can know that you're ready for whatever's going to happen in the birth process.
Mm-hmm.
And then parenting, my parents didn't know what they were getting with me.
Yeah.
Or any of my brothers and sisters, right? So there's certain things that call us to show that the fuck up. If you've ever come upon an accident, you're driving along and you're listening to your music, you're like, going over to a friend's house for dinner, fuck. Yeah, what are you going to do to get ready? You show up. Mm-hmm. You do what you can, especially if you're first one on the scene.
Yeah.
So it seems it's like in the moving of the body.
Yeah.
That we get ready for things. Even if it's starting to type a letter that's a difficult communication, even that much movement is like something.
Yeah.
But man, I never really get ready just by sitting going, Maybe a little meditation, but yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks for showing up. That I didn't know that part of the story. I do remember appreciating you for like, wow, the energy that you are in this space. I didn't know that you had been on your way to Ayla.
Yeah, well, it felt good, to get that recognition afterwards, to really have that story turned on its head, right? Am I ready? And then going to, I'm ready. Like, I'm being seen in my readiness. That was an appreciative sort of turn of those events. And, that often happens, right? Like, we often find ourselves far more equipped than we believe to be, right? Mm-hmm. I see this in the acro space so often, right? from the outside, a beginner might see what we do in acro yoga and be incredibly intimidated to jump in and even start.
I was intimidated when I came to your class.
Yeah.
That was not my first acro experience, but like all of a sudden we're going there in a multi-part thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we were just gonna fly. I'm flying.
Yeah.
Like, okay, good first class.
Yeah.
I was intimidated.
Yeah.
I didn't feel ready when you said, let's go. I think
it happens to nearly everybody. I can look back on my own first classes within the acro space and feeling like, I was ready to try, but I was doing things that I didn't think I could do first class. And I see this time and time again where I'd take brand new students and take them through thresholds that they can't wrap their head around moving through. But what it points at is this, the fact that we actually are far more equipped than we ever imagined ourselves to be. There's, are you familiar with the major arcana of the tarot? I know you're vaguely familiar. If
Let's go with vague.
Yeah.
Vaguely.
Yeah. So there's a card called the Fool, and it's the 0 card, the first card of the major arcana. And it has this whimsical being on the edge of a cliff, with almost 1 foot like off the cliff. And he's got his like knapsack strung over his shoulder. Yeah. And that knapsack and the meaning of this card, the archetypal energy of this card is the leap of faith into the unknown, right? Like he's being guided by spirit, which is kind of leading him to leap off of this crevasse into the unknown space. And that knapsack that he holds symbolizes all of his tools that he's going to take on this journey. Now, the major arcana is built around the Fool's journey, right? This Fool has now leapt into the unknown and is now making his way through these different archetypal energies of the tarot. And it's so poignant because it's like, it shows that we're all equipped with these tools that we don't even necessarily realize we have, and we're actually far more ready to jump into these spaces than we believe. And belief has a huge part to play in whether we succeed or fail in these spaces.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also want to add in that, like, the wisdom of the body.
Yeah.
And I'll sometimes play a game where I tell my body, like, what does this feel like? Or what would it be like to, I think of skiing. I just came back to skiing after about 10 years being out of it. And I used to, live near Ski Mountain, do it all the time. And went down, from chair 1 to 8 in Taos Mountain, which is like a little beginnerish kind of thing. I'm like, Go left, I'm like, okay. I think I know how to do this. I get to the top, I'm like, I haven't really taken a run yet. And I ski over and I peek over a black run. I forget the name of it, and it's like, my mind was saying that's not a good idea to start.
Yeah. First
run in 10 years. My body was like, can we do this one? And I'm like, yeah. Are you serious? And it's like, trust us. I'm like, okay. So I pointed him over and I went down and I was like, yeah, that's fun. And my body responded well and remembered, like getting back on the bike,
Yeah.
was there.
Yeah.
My body also knows how to play songs that have some complicated pieces to it on the drums that I learned 30 years ago.
Yeah.
More. But then I go to learn a new song that's maybe even less complicated, and it's like awkward, and I don't feel good on the drums, because I haven't been practicing my rudiments. But the old songs, it's like all there. It's like, whoa, the body knows.
Yeah.
I also believe that, I'm going to say the body, but in the somatic sense, the body is all, spirit, soul, emotions, all of it. in our ability to bring in things that may be beyond the actual memory of this body, things it's never done.
Yeah.
Go body.
There's layers to the body, right?
Yeah, body. What is it?
Body is not just this
us?
physical body.
Yeah.
You have the emotional body. You have the mental body. You have the spiritual body. You know, and these are the layers of the body. They overlap. They're different dimensions of the same thing, right? And yet they're all contained within.
Yeah, we can channel it through. Like, you know, for instance, like body. What does it feel like to walk a slack line? You know. I believe, and it's been my experience, that the body knows these things.
Yeah.
Again, saying the body, like including the antennae that pull in.
Yeah.
You know, it helps you watch somebody else a little bit and go like, take that in.
Yeah.
Body.
Yeah.
But even if you've never seen things before.
Well, that's another interesting thing where it's like I've, you know, my ability to do things in dance per se comes, I think, largely from mirror neurons. I've watched a lot of dance. For most of my life, I was not a dancer, right? I would dance at maybe clubs and bars and whatnot.
Meaning you didn't identify as a dancer, or you hadn't been trained as a dancer?
I hadn't been trained as a dancer. I did it relatively rarely. I enjoyed dancing. I knew this at an early age. I was one of the few people at the elementary school dance that had the courage to dance with one of the gals, and was told that I was a good dancer. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never seen it before. I'd never had it exemplified, but I just kind of let my body move, and it was enjoyable. And but I recognize that by watching dance and like our ability to mimic and our ability to embody that which we see is quite incredible. Like the encyclopedia that we can attain simply by visualizing and actually like taking that visualization to the next step of, because you know there's these different studies coming out recently that you know, you visualize an activity and suddenly the muscle mass will begin to grow. For instance, like if you were to visualize reps over and over again,
you can get stronger.
You can get stronger.
Wow.
Yeah.
When I was teaching skiing at Beaver Creek in Colorado, I don't know, just 20 years ago, but we used to bring students up for a hot chocolate break.
Yep.
Maybe lunch, and there was a TV, we put on a video of these two demo team members, U.S. demo team, skiing. Just a little music, and just watch. You know, based on that principle that you know the body grokks that.
Yeah.
And here's another interesting thing to it is like, but what is that movement? Because when you say you had not really seen people dance, I bet you had seen girls dance, but not boys so much.
I mean, I'm talking about at elementary school age. You know, I maybe had seen a handful of TV shows or movies that had people dancing.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't well versed in watching it, but I'm sure I'd seen it within that space. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known at all. And when I say I hadn't seen people in real life dance.
In real life, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, we can go.
The meta version, yeah. But, you know, I'd never seen my parents dance. I'd never seen my sisters dance. I'd never seen anyone close to me dance. You know, certain families have dance in their DNA, right? Like, they're dancers, you know? They witness it in their culture. They witness it in, you know, and I didn't see that. And yet, I imagine through enough of the taking in the images on a television screen, I perhaps was able to put together how one dances. I also...
At least the permissive space. You can move your elbow.
Yeah.
You can flap a wrist. You can...
I remember it being a lot of hands like this. This was my first dance, was something along the lines of a lot of...
I think mine was like, probably, this felt a little safe, like, plus anybody comes up to mock me, I'm like, hey, I'm dancing. Looks like fighting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was fun. I think, and like you said, the permissive space is sort of explore. That I gave myself. I think from an early age, I gave myself exploratory permission, right? I didn't.
Which is still alive in you today.
Quite alive. I don't necessarily care that much about what other people think of me, right? I'm not saying that it's a zero in regards to what I filter into my consciousness, but it's negligible in regards to I care more about
2.5 maybe.
Perhaps.
Depends on the activity.
Depends on the scale too.
If you're singing solo on stage, it goes up a little, I can tell you.
Yeah. But I think, over the years I've certainly become more and more accustomed to making a fool out of myself, right? To being goofy, to understanding that within a beginner's space, if I'm not great, that's all right. Yeah. And I think that ties back into the readiness conversation. Bless you. Mm. Because, yeah, when we equip ourselves with that permission to explore, and also the permission to be a beginner, to be poor at something that we've just begun at, it changes the field in a way that allows us to grow, because we're not stuck on the expectations of us becoming great or being something that we're not in that moment. We're allowing ourselves to be exactly where we are, a beginner in that moment. And a ready beginner is going to grow much faster than a hesitant individual expecting themselves to be greater than they are.
You can feel that in my body as you're talking about it. And like I have, training in dance, and so I do have certain expectations of myself to be able to, make a move that I see, and to learn from choreography, although it's always an edge for me.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole line of, can I relax enough to learn the choreography? Because I definitely have it in me that, like, oh, I did the wrong thing. I did this instead of like this.
Yeah.
And I can get stuck there like, damn it. And then of course you miss the next and next.
Yeah.
So did I share with you that I decided one day, what's the kind of dance I haven't done yet? And burlesque. And so I joined the Boulder Burlesque troupe.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which, this is 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Just before the pandemic, because I got to perform in one show and then pandemic closed down. And I went into it thinking, we did a little video kind of audition and a written audition. And I'm like, I got this. I know I'll be invited. I know I can move. And I'm also thinking that, some of these bodies are going to be older than me, or, women coming from pregnancy or something like they want to express. And it was all lithe-bodied, 20 to maybe 32-year-old women.
Yeah.
Like, whew. So the first part is like, kind of hang. And the second question, in a way that has them feel safe enough, but also like, can I be me? Because I don't want to like try and be like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a woman.
Yeah.
So I want to be a man. And then the supreme challenge was they had a choreographed piece. They said, this is an all-company piece that we're all going to learn. And in the dance studio with mirrors, there were like 14 of us. And it was about a 6-minute piece. That's a long choreography. Maybe it was 4.5, but to me it felt like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And wow, man, I really had to double down on this idea of, if I do that for one move, that's gone, and keep going, because otherwise I'd be totally lost.
Yeah.
And from past experience, my body goes on fire. I'm just like, and a story of I can't do it. And I did it. I learned it. I was really nervous before the performance and got a call from the director, said, John Michael, I'm sorry to say that because of the smaller stage, the dance studio, we're only going to be able to go with 6 dancers. And I'm like, oh, please don't have me be one of them. She said, so I hope you're okay with this, but we're going to have you focus on other pieces. I said, but I learned it.
Yeah.
I learned it, but it took that moment by moment letting go. And the other part in that was like, I'm like, wow, these are a lot of female kind of moves.
Yeah.
Like, and she goes, they are. I said, so you don't have like variations on each of these for me that are, like that. Ash shake, and she goes, I don't. All right. So I'm going to learn this thing.
Yeah.
Right? And this is true of anything.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to just trust my body to adapt it to still be me. Right? Mm-hmm. Without overthinking it.
Yeah.
Without trying to take apart each piece and go like this. It's just like, how do I be me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true when we have injuries, or you watch somebody, you have a different sized body than I do, than Prishnikov or a ballerina, right?
A little bit, a little different.
Yeah, so how does it feel?
Yeah.
So how do we trust both?
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning something from a book, a video, YouTube, we learn a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And
then how does it actually feel in my body, my expression?
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think that comes down to, authenticity, right? Like you really expressed how you were trying to do something, but you weren't trying to do something in the way that others were doing it necessarily. You wanted to make it your own, and I think that's the key to the whole thing, right? Like, authenticity is my paramount, concern, right? How can we become more authentically ourselves? How can, and that's what really is the spice of life, right? Like, when everything under the sun has been said, but has it been said in the way that you would say it, or that I would say it? It's like, we're all inhabiting this human experience, and there's so much overlap in our experience, and there's so much difference, right? And we all contain these various energies that make us very unique and very special, and at the same time, there's where the diagram overlaps, and we have these commonalities that are probably way more vast than our differences, and yet it is our differences that make our personal expression, whether it be dance, writing, songs, any number of different ways that we can express ourselves. That's what makes it juicy and worthwhile, because it is more than likely going to contain some element of the universal and some element of the personal.
Yes, and there's a trick of the ego here that's coming up for me, like, I'll go to the burlesque, like, there was a part of me that goes like, I don't do moves like that in this body.
Yeah.
It's not going to look masculine enough, or that's not John Michael, right? But I submitted to the way they were doing them to feel it, and I started to stretch myself, and like, yeah, the edge of me that wanted to, like, bring enough masculine, I also almost wanted to make it something uber masculine,
Yeah.
Start to relax and go, yeah, what if your authentic lies in a place you haven't expressed yet?
Yeah.
Which brings me back to the festival. This place where we go to get stretched and discombobulated and inspired and stretched, and then we come back to this place that we call integration and decompression. And that's a place to watch, I think, where the ego can kind of go like, well, let's get back into the way we do things. around here
Mm-hmm.
in this ego.
Yeah.
But then also like the curiosity of, but wait a minute, I kissed a boy and I liked it or something. It's not a confession. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I did something different.
The incorporation.
Yeah, or I walked a little different there that felt freer. My arms were loose. My arms were swinging. I noticed that I walk and my arms are plastered to my side. It feels stiff. But it feels weird to let them swing. I'm not used to that back in this life. So there's the edge, right?
Yeah.
Getting stretched and then find this line of discernment of, what's not me, what is me, what's authentic, and can what's authentic be different than how I thought authentic was before?
Yeah. Well, I think that comes to a big misunderstanding that I held most of my life. You hear this idea of finding yourself, right?
Yeah.
The coming of age tale of finding oneself. And the more and more that I've experienced life, I don't think that's a correct framing of what we're doing in finding our authenticity. I feel like we are creating ourselves. And that frames it in a particularly different way, because I think there's multiple ways. We're infinite beings. We have infinite degrees of expression that we can explore, right? And the truth comes in when we light up, that's the moments where we're most ourselves. We can feel that authenticity because it feels most joyous in us, right? We can feel when we're out of alignment with ourselves, but these are all explorations in the artistic process of painting us onto the canvas of our lives, right?
As opposed to discovering the canvas in a dusty bin. I think we've stumbled our way into one of my favorite spaces, which is, there are these phrases that guide us, and have even been said by wise people, and we've said it, and they're in books.
Yeah.
You just said one, like, go out and find yourself, right?
Yeah.
But what if it's like something like, go out and discover that space or that zone in which you have formed and are forming, something like this. Like it's an alive space, as opposed to like, wow, I opened this door and there I am. I found the real John Michael. Hey, everybody. And then obviously by the time we finish the sentences of describing who I really am, are we even still that? Even being witnessed and saying I'm that can shift us.
Right. The mutable nature of us in general will say that we're so many things, and we may be different things at different times.
Maybe we're becomings.
We are constantly becoming something, and it's that act of becoming, the act of being, this unison of being and becoming, right? Because being is a sense of, well, I'm going to be in a certain state, right? But becoming is mutating that state into something else. So we're constantly negotiating these two states of being and becoming.
Yeah, I like how you just used unison, being and becoming, in the same sentence, and I'm inspired to go read the. I could use a hot drink, sure. Have we ever paused in the middle of a thing? Are we allowed to do that?
I don't know. Here we are, though.
So,
what just happened?
I'm not sure.
I was over there.
You are over here.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Well, I think even after reset, we have to at least acknowledge something.
Yes.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Did we even say that to start the show?
I don't think we did.
Oh.
I don't know if we're ready for it.
We're ready for it. Well, we got it in there somewhere.
Yep.
Welcome to the Here We Are podcast. We're back after a little break. You have no idea how long we were gone. Could have been days, could have been weeks.
Yes.
Indeed, it was just enough time to make some hot tea. And talk about the festival space and being ready. Was there a story? I don't know if it's important, but...
Oh yeah, there was the story of a little teasing you did with a friend of yours that ended up putting you into a moment that you were perhaps not ready for.
Oh, that story, the story from break, yeah. Well, yeah. Well, here we are, so...
Here we are.
Yeah, I was sharing with Matt, with you. Yeah, I've definitely had moments in my life thrust upon me. And there's a moment of choice of, like when a baby's coming, pretty much you choose it. But there are other times too. It's just like, sometimes we say we have no choice. I say there's always a choice.
Yeah.
Even if, Viktor Frankl is my favorite example of a man who declared that he had choice, and he was in a prison.
Right. Not just any prison. He was in, was it Auschwitz? He was in a concentration camp.
Concentration camp. So, supreme example of choosing within a space that a lot of us would say there's no choice. And I was sharing that at Unison Festival, we cultivated this space at night called Brave Space, in which we have a set of principles that we hold the context with, invite people into it, to create safe enough space with each other that we can be vulnerable and practice relational dynamics of a higher vibration. We hold a chill space, music and da-da-da. And I'd gone out on the festival, came back, and wow, how lovely. People are chilled, they're cuddling, they're practicing acro, they're contact improv, having soft conversations. And then on a playlist that I created and forgot that I had put in a just playful thing in the middle of it, it went from probably Enya or who's our friend that was playing at the festival?
Ayla.
Ayla.
Yeah.
To, is it hair, nails, hips, toes, tantric call that has this whole choreography, and my face just went, whoa. And I was about 20 feet from the console to change the music, but it was already impacting people. They're like, what? Coming out of their cuddles and like looking up, getting up on elbows. I was 20 feet from the console, but I was right here with bam, and I was in the choreography, which I'd never performed for people before, but I know it in my body. And it's, Tantric Hall does it in drag. They have black latex suits. They have all colorful nails. It's freaking outrageous. And I'm partway into it. I'm like, oh, this is a long song. I'm into this. I turn around, there's a woman who had walked in with me that we kind of made knowing eyes of like, do we know each other? And she just looked at me and I'm like, girl, let's go. And bam, she jumped in the choreography with me. There was a moment of choice of like, which way we're gonna go, right? Yeah. And then two guys that came into the space just then looked around. I looked at them like, we don't dance, we work. Work with me. And they jumped into it and full on, all of us did the whole choreography made up. And then the song ended and we melted into the carpet like it had never happened. And people were amazed, but it was a moment of like, oh, we're not ready for this. This is inappropriate. And yeah, those moments where we just choose something like, I'm going into it. If you can't get out of it, way of saying, go into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering.
And it's, I think it displays another rule of readiness. Like, the less serious we take ourselves and our existence in the world, like our persona, yeah. The more equipped we are to just roll with things and to be ready at at a moment's notice, because suddenly
if you're ready, just to, like a declaration sounds like I'm just declaring myself ready.
Yeah. Because suddenly if you're goofy, if you're, in a space of play, you're always ready in the space of play.
Oh. Sounds like playground of potential perspective here.
Indeed. There's potential for playground of potential.
Can I turn to that for a moment with you? Like, just bringing in that context. Matt has a project, a playground of potential, which you're probably finding this podcast. And the playground of potential, there's a virtual element which people can connect. And there are also activity. Say some more, because I felt very alive when you talked about it before. I'm like, oh, I want to play in the playground potential.
Yeah.
I suppose we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I want to pass the mic to you. Like, will you tell us a bit about the playground of potential?
Yeah, well, it's less a set thing and more of an energy and idea, right? Foundational to it is that we're these infinite beings on Earth, and that Earth itself is this playground of potential. This playground in which we can find our authentic self, right? To express ourselves in the myriad ways that we can as humans, right? That we're actually far more limitless than we believe ourselves to be, right?
I knew that theme from earlier was a part of the playground, The creativity, the limitlessness, the unlimited resource with and through.
Absolutely. And, part of that comes from a space of health and wellness, right? When we are thriving in our vitality, we're suddenly find ourselves far more equipped to do all the various things that we want to do in life, right? And our brain functions more appropriately. Our heart and our emotions function in the way they're meant to. So there's this component of playful empowerment, right? We want to be empowered and thriving individuals. I believe the time for humanity to survive is over. We've been surviving for a long time, and suddenly we've found ourselves in the modern age where survival's, for a good deal of the Western population, survival isn't what it used to be, right?
Survival mentality, it can be optional.
Yeah. Well, there's an abundance of food. We have technologies and medical technologies that keep us alive for a great deal. So we're no longer in a space where death is around every corner,
And let's just say for perspective that this is in the general culture, and we're talking in this country, a lot of Western European countries and so on.
Yeah.
But just acknowledging that there are also people in war-torn areas, or that,
absolutely,
where it is actual survival.
So, these still exist. It's these situations. Yeah, I was specifically talking about the Western world, right? Even within the Western world, there's a dichotomy of various stratified, classes, right? And those experiences, fall in various areas of, different qualities to those lives.
We're talking about people. You're speaking about people who have enough resources that being in a survival mentality, or describing like getting by or surviving, is kind of a choice in mindset versus thriving.
Absolutely. I think that one of the major beauties of the human life is the creativity that we all possess, and our ability to tap into creativity that may even go beyond us, right? We talk about this throughout history of like the daemon, the genius, the muse, these external forces that allow us to bring in creative elements and tap into those elements in ways that can actually revolutionize our lives. I would say that we all have access to this creative force that would allow us to, in some way or another, transcend our circumstance, and it is a matter of mindset, right? And it's easy to say, harder to do. It's a matter of reinforcing this idea that anything is possible. Anything is possible. There are 3 stipulations to that. Anything is possible with enough energy, time, and willpower. And
I like the word willingness too, which is maybe a subset of willpower. So it's like it's no distinction. I would say like the willingness gives us access to the power that's innate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sense a sort of hesitation in the realm of power, or what is it that about the word willpower that sort of feels off to you? I'm curious.
It doesn't. I just like the word willingness because I use it.
Okay.
Let's go with your words. These are your principles. We're talking about playground potential. I have no issue with power.
Power dynamics. Yeah.
As long as
I don't know. I'm just curious because power source seems to get sort of bad raps in this day and age, and
I think that's an off-ramp to another topic.
Absolutely.
It's something I just like the simple act of being willing.
Yeah.
Opens us. I would say up to the power. So
yeah,
let's go with willpower.
Yeah.
The 3 things again.
The 3 things: energy, time, and willpower. Right? Mm-hmm. With enough energy, time, and willpower, anything can be accomplished. Anything can be done. Those are the constraints on it, and they are heavy constraints. How do we get the energy? How do we get the will? How do we create the time? These are elements of our economy that we don't think necessarily about all the time. Mm-hmm. But they're the fundamental principles that outline whether we can get something done or not, and I would add within that space that suddenly when we work together, when we work in collaborative space, many hands make light work, and suddenly the work of 2 becomes the expression of 3, right? Or more.
Yeah.
And when we begin to add the principles of working together, we can do far greater things than we've ever imagined.
And is this the playground of potential of what's being invited in?
Absolutely. I mean, the collaborative space, the collaborative project of how can we work together to explore what it is to be human.
Then I have an idea.
Please.
A question. Is there a game yet in Playground of Potential? Like a physical game yet?
Well, physical game. There are perhaps physical games. But I think there's one in your mind that one that you have yet to share.
I think there's one in you.
there's many in me, but
my idea, when you say collaboration, it just kind of lights me up. The word collaboration, because absolutely what you're saying, and I want to say out of that comes like the idea of. I would love to support the creativity in you, the creativity in me, of how I know how I feel I want support in my body, but also it impacts everything in ways to play with each other physically. Mm-hmm. And we have basketball, we have lots of different kinds of things, but I think there's because I've seen you express in your body, we've talked about these things. They're drawn from lots of places, acro and so on, but it's I think there's a very organic, primal well, I've been in your warm-up space, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That wants to happen. And then there's this martial practice that I've been talking about that we were going to maybe explore today. And I don't know, I think there's a peanut butter and chocolate or peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
That I'd love to explore with you. And
yeah. Well, I think you're sort of alluding towards a development that I created over the pandemic when I was, thrust out of the acro space because we couldn't meet in that way at that time. And I developed what I call free-form fitness, right?
Yeah, I want to play in that.
Yeah.
And be supportive of you. I'll be a guinea pig or supporting that.
Absolutely. I think you're the perfect person to do that because it's you have to have a level of play and a level of understanding that you're joining into a field that may feel different and strange in comparison to
a gym class.
A gym class, yeah. Like, it's not lifting weights at the gym, right? You're actually using your own body weight in a lot of these exercises.
Yeah.
You're using animal movements, you're using dance, you're using martial arts to get the fitness in, and it's a different experience than most people are used to. And without a certain level of resignation to being in new spaces, which I know you have, it might feel
weird.
Might feel weird.
I'm really enrolled.
Yeah.
I kind of thought about it too this morning, and we're going on a specificity, but and I'm using the podcast to put you on the spot of like, hey, let's do this something.
Yeah.
And just I would love to see you bring this out in the world. And it occurred to me, like, what if it was the kind of space, and maybe it's people who have been a certain number of times, so you understand what's happening, that we all have to modify, especially if it's as organic, and animal movements. There are going to be times where like, I have to find my own version of this, or I have to take some kind of a child's pose or something. But I also wonder, like, what if it was a space, playground potential, where we can relax into your leadership, but there also might be time like, hey, I have an idea. Could we try this? Or I thought of an animal. And, maybe you guide it because you might have the most knowledge about turning that into something. Yeah. But that there's the excitement of participation, co-creation, and
yeah, well, I got to experience that firsthand over the summer when I was leading what I called Project Imaginarium, which was a summer camp program
with the kids. Yeah.
And of course, the kids, they're creative beings. They haven't forgotten that, right? Like most adults have. So when they came into the space and started naming off animals that they wanted to embody, and I had not done before,
awesome.
It was great to see them bring those to life. And, and also we created, wheelie chair races and various things that I had never planned, but because, it's such an important part of me to add the element of empowerment into the play, right? Where I may be curating the space, but we're all playing together, and it's not a leadership. It's not a top-down approach. It's not like do it how I do it, or I'm going to tell you how you play, right? Yeah. It's no, we're playing. This is a fun space where we get to explore play together. And so absolutely there's room for that.
I love that. And in the Trust Lab, that's what we're trying to do too, is to relax enough, especially around the role of facilitator. The facilitator isn't about control, it's about offering and listening, offering and listening, offering and listening. And last night, a little plug for the Sec restaurant here in Arroyo Seco, New Mexico. The owner, Elijah, created these dinners and for locals, and it's a wine and meal pairing. And I was talking to a man who'd been in the business for a long time, who gave a toast to Elijah, like, what are the elements that make this so great? And he said, well, the quality of the food, all these things, the presentation. But what came through for me was like the risk that Elijah was taking as leader to turn over the concept to his chef. The risk the chef was taking to be named outside of the kitchen, to stand in front, to say what he'd created. The risk that all the participants took to come and not know exactly what they're getting. And there it is in front of you. And there was a point where Elijah and the chef, the restaurant, like all of a sudden there's this window that opens next to our table, and the window opens and there they are. And he's talking about the wine, and the chef offers something, and they were being playful about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, you guys, that was my favorite. Like all of a sudden you pop out somewhere. And he said, that's part of this, being playful, co-creative in the spirit. Maybe we don't do that with everybody, but your part of the table was open. So yeah, there's something very alive in the co-creative and the collaborative and being open.
Yeah. It's it takes us out of our comfort zone, and that's where the real juicy fruit are. So I'm not talking about gum.
Are we getting? Can we get some?
Not a sponsor. But no, that's where growth happens, right? Outside of our comfort zone, when we take those risks to leap into the unknown, to play in places that we've not played before.
The festival experience.
The festival experience, the playground of potential.
In every day.
Yes.
In every way.
Yes.
Let's do it. I want to come to the playground of potential.
All right, let's join it right now.
Let's let's do it right after we go off camera.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good time to say goodbye, and appreciate jumping in while we were far from ready, and finding ourselves more than ready.
And as we go into the rest of the day, I just want to say, I'm ready.
He's ready, and I might be ready too.
We won't know until we go into action.
Yep.
All right.